What if I told you that the purest light can be the most destructive fire, and that the angelic goodness you've been taught is, in essence, a veil hiding cosmic terrors beyond human comprehension? Those winged beings, supposed emissaries of peace and solace, possess facets so abysmal that their mere presence can dissolve not only your flesh, but the very fabric of your psychic reality. Today, we will delve into the depths of arcane texts, into the whispers of forbidden's grimoires, to reveal a truth few dare to contemplate, the true nature of the 10 most dangerous angels in all of occult lore, beings whose magnificence is as terrifying as their power of destruction. This journey is not a simple story. It is an invitation to the alchemy of your own mind, a catalyst for you to dismantle the illusory constructs that have kept you prisoners of a limited vision of the cosmos. Every name we will speak, every revelation we will share, will be a spark that ignites the inner forge where ignorance is transmuted into visions. Prepare your spirit, because what you are about to discover will not only transform your perception of the divine, but will force you to confront the shadows and lights that dwell within your very being. If you feel the call of this truth resonating in your soul, I ask you to leave your like, share your first impressions in the comments, and join our brotherhood of seekers of profound wisdom by subscribing to this channel. May your consciousness be open, because the doors to the forbiddens are about to open. Common perception, spun by sugar-coated narratives and convenient dogmas, has bequeathed you a one-dimensional image of the heavenly emissaries. But I tell you that this vision is a veil, a curtain woven to hide the truth of their depths. In the Qumran codices, in the whispers of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and in the apocryphal texts that orthodoxy has condemned to oblivion, angels are revealed not only as messengers of comfort, but as fierce guardians, architects of divine judgments, and executors of the cosmic will, whose glory is as blinding as their fury. They are not mere emanations of goodness, but manifestations of an order that transcends human morality, bringers of both creation and desolation. Their true face is that of a flaming sword, capable of discernment and annihilation. Imagine for a moment the destruction that precedes a new era, the purge necessary for transmutation. Angels, in their most crude role, are the agents of this dismantling. The chronicles of ancient Sumer, the Book of Jubilees, and certain Gnostic treatises describe angelic legions with terrifying roles: the annihilation of impious cities, the guarding of dimensional prisons for rebellious souls, the infliction of pestilence and calamity to rebalance the cosmic scales. Their power is not merely defensive. It is actively destructive when the equilibrium is upset. They are the unwavering hand that does not tremble in fulfilling a purpose that escapes our limited understanding of justice or compassion. Their work is severe, yes, but essential to the fabric of existence. Their warrior-like appearance transcends any earthly battle you can conceive. They do not fight for worldly territories or kingdoms, but for the purity of the spheres, for the integrity of the celestial domains, and for the fulfillment of divine decrees. Jewish midrashim and ancient Ethiopian texts of Enoch tell of the Grigori, the Watchers, and of heavenly armies who did not hesitate to unleash catastrophe to rectify transgressions. These are not beings who dissuade with kind words. They are forces that act with unquestionable authority, and their mere presence can invoke cataclysms. They are the executors of the divine fiat, and their purpose often requires a heavy hand, a hand that tears down in order to rebuild, a hand that purges in order to purify. In addition to their role as warriors, they assume the function of implacable judges. In Kabbalistic mysticism, we speak of Malkiel and Duma, angels with dominion over judgment and the silence of death, whose gaze penetrates beyond intentions to the very essence of the soul. Their discernment knows no deception, and their verdict is immutable. To face the presence of a judging angel is to confront the naked truth of your being without ornamentation or illusions. It is a forced internal alchemy where every shadow and every light are exposed before a higher intelligence that cannot be evaded. This encounter, this confrontation with the sacred in its purest and least complacent form, is what truly transforms or disintegrates the spirit. This duality in angelic nature, of benevolence and terror, of creation and destruction, is a reflection of the entire cosmos. It compels us to question our comfortable notions of the divine and seek a more complex, vast, and often more intimidating truth. Angels are not just a metaphor for light. They mirror all the energies that weave existence, including those that demand we grow through purification and the confrontation of the shadowy. Their power is a manifestation of pure, undiluted cosmic energy, unfiltered by human expectations. But who, specifically, are these beings whose names resonate with the thunder of judgment and the shadow of annihilation? And what secrets do their legends reveal about the fate of humanity? Not all knowledge is light, nor does all teaching lead to salvation. There exists in the annals of time, veiled by the dust of the ages, the tale of Penemu, the angel who dared to divert the current of truth. His fall was not due to a rebellion of arms, but to the subtle insurrection of the pen. It was he who, according to the forgotten codices of the Book of Enoch, whispered to humanity the art of writing, not as a pure gift of illumination, but as a double-edged tool, charged with the potential for the deepest corruption. This arcane being, whose name evokes the shadow that hangs over clarity, taught men not only to record memory, but to rewrite it, to forge invisible chains with the very syllables that promised liberation. In that poisoned gift lies the genesis of manipulation, the first great deception of the human intellect, the seed of discord planted in the furrow of the word. His legacy is a labyrinth of mirrors, where the truth is distorted beyond recognition, a slow poison seeping through the pages of history. Penemu unlocked the secrets of calligraphy, not for the preservation of the immaculate, but for the forging of illusions. He showed how the order of words could alter perception, how selective storytelling could erect false gods and topple true heroes. Propaganda, that insidious weapon that bleeds civilizations dry without spilling a single drop of visible blood, is its direct offspring. We learn to construct myths that are more deeply rooted than reality, to weave webs of lies so intricate that their unraveling requires centuries of effort. History itself became a textual battlefield, where the victors not only wrote the annals, but also erased the memory of the vanquished. It was Penemu who planted the notion that real power lies not in the sword, but in the ability to control the narrative, to dictate collective perception, to transform perception into dogma. Thus, truth became malleable, like clay in the hands of those who mastered the art of written persuasion, paving the way for the cultural and spiritual self-destruction of entire empires. From their most intimate foundations, look at the sands of Babylon, the mutilated hieroglyphs of ancient dynasties, the edicts that sanctified atrocities, and the manuscripts that rewrote the memory of the gods. In each of these distortions, one perceives the shadow of Penemu, the breath of his cunning. He is not a mere corrupter of facts, but a dark alchemist who transmutes the essence of reality into a consensual illusion. The ancient sages, aware of this danger, guarded texts with implacable zeal, some even condemning them to oblivion or annihilation, not for the knowledge they contained, but for the interpretive poison Penemu had infused into their transmission. Imagine spells written not to summon spirits, but to chain minds, to inoculate a distorted vision of the cosmos that perpetuates itself from generation to generation, a textual curse that blinds the inner eye and fragments the spiritual unity of the human being. How, then, to discern the genuine revelation of Penemu's subtle weave? The key lies in internal alchemy, in the unavoidable confrontation with your own deeply held beliefs. Question the source, not only of what you read, but also how that reading resonates in the depths of your being. All cosmic truth, when pure, generates a resonance of expansion and clarity. Penemu's corruption, on the other hand, sows doubt, not for growth, but for stagnation, for division, for control. It is a call to radical introspection, to examine every pillar of your understanding, every dogma accepted without question. Only through this vigilant discernment, this purification of the mind through reason and intuition, can you shed the layers of lies woven by this fallen angel and reconnect with the true current of cosmic energy that flows through authenticity. This path of discernment, this journey to unravel the invisible threads of Penemu, is the rarest and most transformative knowledge you can seek. It frees you from the mental prisons built by millennia of written manipulation, opening the portals to unfiltered perception, to a wisdom that resonates with the primordial vibration of the universe. It is a form of higher alchemy, where the lead of ignorance and falsehood is transmuted into the gold of irrefutable truth. To understand Penemu is not merely to know a fallen angel. It is to understand the mechanics of illusion and the path to the sovereignty of the mind. But if Penemu corrupts the word, who watches over the silence and what lies hidden in the domains of those who whisper truths in dreams beyond the reach of pen and ink, if Penemu wove intricate veils of illusion with the written word, corrupting knowledge to manipulate consciousness, Jophiel stands as the incandescent sword of unfiltered truth, a radiance that, although purifying, can disintegrate not only lies, but also the human mind's ability to assimilate them. Its beauty is not that of an earthly garden, ornate and comforting, but that of a supernova, dazzling in its majesty and annihilating of what pre-exists. It is cosmic revelation in its purest state, the naked architecture of the universe manifested. In its total indifference, a truth that seeks not to console, but simply to be. The sages of Eleusis, in their deepest mysteries, barely touch the contours of this reality, veiling it with symbolism to protect the initiates from the brutal impact of the absolute. Imagine for a moment the sight of the machinery of the universe, operating without inherent purpose, the ballet of galaxies spinning in a void without an audience, the ceaseless dance of creation and destruction without implicit moral judgment. This is Jophiel's truth, the pure, dispassionate efficiency of existence, the unmoved mover that simply is. It is a beauty of such magnitude that it defies the human capacity to process it, pulverizing cognitive structures built on convenience, personal meaning, and anthropocentric interpretation. It is not a truth that comforts you or validates your aspirations. It is one that forces you to confront your insignificance in the vast symphony of the whole, revealing that the cosmos has no like or dislike, only flux and becoming. Its light is the essence of life, but also the constant reminder of the inescapable death of all that we know. The Gnostics of old, in their forbidden codices like the one at Nag Hammadi, intuited the existence of a truth beyond ordinary understanding, a pleroma so radiant that it could only be perceived through intervening veils or eons, protectors of the psyche. Jophiel, in this light, could be the direct manifestation of that pleroma, the eruption of the primal source into the veiled consciousness without the mediation of Sophia. The chronicles of the seers of Al-Mustafa are the barely surviving fragments. Of the books of Thoth describe those who, after achieving the ultimate vision, returned with fragmented minds, their tongues babbling fragments of an unassimilable reality, unable to reconcile cosmic grandeur with the small prison of the air. Ego. This is the paradox of enlightenment. That which saves from ignorance can also destroy identity. The human mind tenaciously clings to narrative, to the illusion of control and purpose, building sandcastles on foundations of interpretation. Jophi tears away these protective layers with the ferocity of a hurricane. What happens when the fabric of your existence is revealed to be a mere blip in eternity, with no pre-established thread beyond impersonal energetic causality? Despair, enemy, the collapse of all frame of reference, loom like icy shadows. Your most deeply held beliefs, from the concept of the personal God to the very identity forged in the crucible of society, dissolve in a sea of cosmic indifference. It is the terror of absolute freedom, the vision that there is no pre-written destiny, only infinite possibilities unfolding in the void, an abyss as dazzling as it is terrifying, that lays bare the soul before its own emptiness and limitless. Potential dot. So how can one confront Jophiel's dazzling truth without fading into oblivion? Without one's mind breaking before the merciless magnificence of reality? Inner alchemy becomes your only refuge, the forge where the ego must transmute not into gold, but into crystal, capable of refracting that light without shattering. It is a process of radical detachment, of the voluntary dissolution of illusory structures, not by imposition or dogma, but by understanding and accepting the inherent emptiness of all form. Those who seek this vision must first build a psychic vessel of cosmic steel, tempered in the fires of relentless self-observation and cooled in the waters of universal compassion. Only then can one glimpse unbearable beauty without succumbing. But if Jophiel reveals the truth to us in its raw majesty, who is the guardian of the boundaries, the entity that whispers the warnings before the veil is completely torn away, protecting us from knowledge we are not yet ready to assimilate? If Jophiel lays bare the unrelenting majesty of truth, there exists an entity whose domain is even more subtle and, for many, more devastating. Raziel, the keeper of all divine secrets, the whisperer of the mysteries that comprise the very fabric of existence. His realm is not one of blinding light, but of pure information, the primal knowledge encoded in the annals of the cosmos. Legend has it that Raziel is privy to every word spoken, every thought conceived, every particle of light and shadow since the dawn of time. He holds the key to the cosmic library, the compendium of universal laws and transcendental truths. The danger he represents lies not in his malevolence, but in the unfathomable weight of total knowledge, the ultimate power of knowledge. Attempting to understand its mysteries without being prepared can lead to the disintegration of the psyche, to the annihilation of the identity forged in the convenient lies of consensual reality. It is a threshold where the mortal mind confronts its own fragility, a truth that does not illuminate, but dissolves. There is talk of the enigmatic Sefer Raziel Hamalek, the Book of Raziel the Angel, an apocryphal text whose legend places it as the possessor of arcane knowledge, given to Adam by the same angel to console him after his expulsion from Eden. Beyond its physical existence, this tome is an allegory, a symbol of consciousness that can access the foundational truths of the universe. It contains the secrets of creation, celestial mechanics, angelic hierarchies, codes of divine magic, and the arcana of the deepest Kabbalah. But reading its pages or glimpsing its meaning without purity of intention or spiritual maturity is like looking directly into the sun without protection. The mind's eyes burn. The soul is torn apart by an incomprehensible magnitude. It is not that knowledge is evil, but rather that certain frequencies of truth are so potent that they destroy any psychic vessel unable to contain them. Ancient cultures did not prohibit knowledge out of tyranny, but rather out of ancestral wisdom. About human fragility in the face of the divine, the echoes of this warning resonate in ancient tales. Icarus, flying too close to the sun, was punished not for his ambition, but for ignoring the limits inherent in his own creation, perishing from an excess of light that his form could not bear. Pandora's box, not as an act of malice, but as the liberation of truths that humanity was not ready to face, unleashing not only evils, but also a hope that only the deepest suffering could forge. The Tower of Babel, not so much an act of insolence, but a premature attempt to ascend to the divine. Realms without the necessary internal preparation, culminating in confusion and fragmentation. Raziel personifies that boundary, the guardian who not only reveals, but by his very existence, warns that there is a price for every veil torn away, for every secret unveiled, and that price can be the very coherence of our being got to dare to. Cross the threshold guarded by Raziel, inner alchemy becomes indispensable. It is not a matter of accumulating more data in memory or understanding abstract concepts. It is a transmutation of being. The aspirant must first purify the psychic vessel, strengthening the spirit and tempering the mind through relentless self-observation, universal compassion, and radical detachment. Only those who have confronted and dissolved their own inner shadows, who have transcended the illusions of the ego and integrated their fragmentation, can hope to glimpse the book of Raziel without succumbing. Humility is the master key for intellectual arrogance that attempts to grasp cosmic truth with. The claws of a limited intellect leads to madness or disintegration. The mystical path is a process of gradual revelation, a gradual initiation that allows consciousness to expand without breaking down, assimilating truth at a pace that does not destroy its foundation. The knowledge Raziel guards is the architectural blueprint of reality, the source codes of the multiverse. To understand it is to understand not only how everything works, but why it exists and the very purpose of existence. It is the ultimate truth that being too vast for linear perception can blur the boundaries of what we believe ourselves to be, of what we believe to be real. The paradox is overwhelming. The key to ultimate liberation can be the cause of ultimate dissolution. Is it possible that, in its infinite wisdom, the universe and its guardians have hidden certain knowledge not to deny us enlightenment, but to protect us from a truth that, if prematurely apprehended, would annihilate us before we could integrate it? What if this safekeeping were not the only layer of protection? What about those who, by design or perversion, wove additional veils, not to protect, but to manipulate perception, concealing truths that, while not disintegrating the psyche, do control the spirit? If Raziel guards the celestial planes, Azazel, the fallen watcher, inhabits the thresholds of the earth, where the darkness of human ambition mingles with the forged fire of disobedience. He offered not the source codes of the cosmos, but the primordial tools for the alteration of matter and spirit without a moral compass to guide them. It was he who, according to the ancient, silenced scrolls and the whispers of the Essenes, revealed to humanity the secrets of metallurgy, teaching men how to extract ore from the bowels of the earth and transmute it into deadly forms. This was not a knowledge of enlightenment, but of earthly empowerment, a veiled invitation to sovereignty over nature and one's fellow human beings, a spark of power that, without the proper vessel of inner wisdom, was destined to set everything ablaze. Its danger lay not in the complexity of knowledge, but in its crude ease of application for selfish and destructive ends, unleashing a force that the immature human soul was ill-equipped to contain. This is the first step toward the abyss of self-destruction, a gift that, in impure hands, becomes a curse. Metallurgy wasn't Azazel's only poisoned gift. With it came the crafting of weapons, yes, but also ornaments that chain the spirit to vanity, and the arts of seduction, which twist natural desire toward manipulation and control. The apocryphal texts, in their veiled warning, recount how he taught women to adorn themselves with precious metals and stones, not for the celebration of life, but to fuel greed and envy, thus weaving a web of subtle deception that corrupts relationships. But the deepest seduction Azazel imparted was that of the mind, the illusory promise of absolute power without the burden of responsibility. The alchemy of matter was mirrored in the dark alchemy of the heart, transforming the pure into the impure, the sacred into the profane, the longing for connection into an instrument of domination. Thus man learned to disfigure both the earth and his own soul, pursuing a false reflection of greatness. This is the crux of Azazel's danger, power without wisdom. a sharp sword in the hands of a wayward child. The fallen watcher provided not the cosmic laws Raziel whispers of, but the tools to ignore or defy them. Metallurgy, at its core, is the ability to shape the physical world. The arts of seduction, the ability to shape the social and emotional world. Both are expressions of will, but without guidance from higher consciousness, they become vectors of shadow. The Book of Enoch describes how Azazel was bound and cast into outer darkness for corrupting humanity. His punishment was not only for his actions, but for the profound cosmic irresponsibility of unleashing transformative forces without the teaching of temperance, compassion, and discernment. Power for power's sake becomes tyranny. Skill without ethics, destruction. History, in its endless cycle of rise and fall, is but an echo of this primordial corruption. Great civilizations, built on the mastery of metals and social sophistication, often succumb to the same hubris that Azazel sowed. Weapons forged for defense became instruments of conquest and genocide. Stratagems of persuasion degenerated into propaganda and tyranny. The myths of Atlantis, the lost empires, and the dark ages of our own history narrate the fall of those who achieved awesome technological and social power but lacked the spiritual wisdom to wield it. Self-destruction is not only an act of nuclear war or ecological collapse, but also the internal corrosion of the spirit, the slow poisoning of the soul by greed, envy, and the insatiable desire for control poisons that Azazel dispensed liberally. Thus, the legacy of Aziz persists in every shadow of our psyche, in every impulse toward purposeless domination, in every tool created without awareness of its ultimate consequences. It invites us to constant introspection. Are we, as a species and individually, exercising the power we possess with the wisdom necessary to avoid disintegrating? Or are we still those wayward children with sharp swords, blind to the inner alchemy that must transmute ego into service, ambition into higher purpose? True alchemy is not only the transmutation of lead into gold, but that of internal chaos into divine order. The challenge is to recognize the seeds of Azazel within us, in the voices that promise shortcuts to power, and to consciously choose the path of wisdom. But what happens when wisdom itself goes awry, when a higher power in its own darkness seeks to guide these primal impulses toward an even more sinister end? And what happens when the line between the gift of Azazel and human nature itself becomes indistinguishable? If the path of Azazel plunged us into the shadow of choice and earthly power, Uriel now emerges as the implacable counterpoint, the keeper of the flame who tolerates no falsehood. His presence is not a comforting balm, but the icy chill of naked truth that penetrates to the marrow. After exploring the seeds of dissolution and disintegration that Azazel sows in the soul, it becomes imperative to discern that which can purify. Uriel does not whisper. He roars with the roar of cosmic fire. His role in the mysteries of creation is that of an alchemist of essence, not of matter, whose task is to strip the spirit of the accumulated layers of illusion and self-deception, not to destroy, but to reveal the underlying truth that has been obscured by the shadow of human choices. Here, there is no refuge for complacency, only the invitation to forge. Uriel's light, unlike the tempting spark, is a violent flame, a fiery whirlwind that seeks not to warm, but to consume. Imagine the crucible of a stellar forge with the impure. Metal is subjected to unimaginable temperatures to remove the slag. This is the Ureliac fire. It burns with such intensity that the masks of the ego, the justifications of the small soul, the veils of illusion we weave to protect ourselves from our own truth, are incinerated without contemplation. The ancient apocryphal texts, those that rarely see the light of day in our time, describe him as the master of destiny and the angel of trembling. For his presence destabilizes every foundation built on lies, not out of malevolence, but out of the imperative need for absolute truth that dwells at the heart of creation. Do not think of human piety when I speak of Uriel. His truth is absolute, and in that absoluteness, the fragility of our understanding and our resistance to change are seen as mere imperfections to be corrected. The Essenes in their desert retreats sought this purification, subjecting themselves to ascetic rigor to strip away the superfluous, sensing that only through a radical emptying could the true light of knowledge be revealed. Uriel is that fire that burns away the rust of the invisible chains that bind us to our base passions and false identifications. His mission, as recounted in fragments of the books of Enoch and the Dead Sea Scrolls, is that of a judge and a revealer, one who does not hesitate to show the true nature of things, no matter how painful the vision may be for an eye accustomed to darkness. Uriel's relentlessness is not a punishment, but a surgical intervention of consciousness. It is the pain that precedes deep healing, the tearing of a bandage over an infected wound. Every illusion that vanishes under his fire, every falsehood that is consumed, is a step toward authenticity, toward true inner alchemy. There is no compassion in his actions because he understands that true compassion lies in the liberation from bondage, not in its perpetuation. Thus, the soul is forced to confront its own shadow, not to condemn it, but to dissolve it. This is the beginning of genuine transmutation, the pain of awakening, the agony of self-confrontation. It forces us to shed the layers of being that no longer serve us, so that the inherent divine can emerge from the ashes. Are we truly ready for Uriel's light, for the fire that does not comfort but lays bare the soul to its starkest reality? Could we bear the crackling of our own lies as they are devoured by that purifying flame, or would we cling to the embers of the familiar, however illusory? This is the seeker's crossroads, to choose the path of relentless truth or that of comfortable fiction. The cosmos itself seems to resonate with this choice, for only those who dare to walk through this fire can hope to achieve an understanding beyond the merely human, a truth forged in the chrysalis of annihilation itself. But what happens when this purifying fire meets no resistance, but is transformed into a tool of a will that transcends the divine and the human? Thus we understand that Uriel's fire, far from being merely a cataclysm, is the forging breath of a will that transcends mere individual existence, a primordial current that seeks in each soul a purified vessel to manifest its sacred design. It is not the destruction of who we are, but the dissolution of who we believe ourselves to be, allowing the true essence, anchored in the heart of the cosmos, to emerge as an inextinguishable beacon. True alchemy, then, is the conscious surrender to this flame that does not judge, but rather molds the purest gold of our essence, transforming pain into the chisel of a greater destiny. But if the will that transcends us is the echo of a universal purpose that resonates in every particle of our being, what new frontiers of consciousness might we cross, once the veil of illusion has been completely consumed and the divine spark within us has joined the cosmic bonfire, to co-create the next dawn of reality? If these words have touched the deepest recesses of your spirit and ignited a thirst for knowledge that transcends the visible, I invite you to join our brotherhood of seekers. Subscribe, and together let us be guardians of ancient wisdom, sharing this light with those who still wander in the shadows. And if your soul yearns to unravel the deepest mysteries of this transcendent will, I guide you to the next portal of understanding. The path of the whisper of the silent architect, unveiling the codes of grand design, awaits you.